Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in-depth into my quarterback start or sit decisions for week number 7 of the 2022 fantasy football season. Inside today's video, I'll be going in-depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the quarterbacks in all of those games. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY, as well as if you have any questions about week number 7, it doesn't even necessarily have to relate to the quarterback position, please make sure that you ask down below in the comment section. I love to talk to you guys down there. So without further ado, let's get on into my week number 7 quarterback start or sit decisions for the 2022 fantasy football season. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the New Orleans Saints at the Arizona Cardinals. In this matchup, the Saints are going to be without Michael Thomas as well as Jarvis Landry, based upon the reports from today on Wednesday. Now, that does mean that I believe Chris Olave will play, but nothing is set in stone until Thursday. But Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are out. Jameis Winston seemingly probably not going to be playing as well. That's why Thursday Night Football is so fun, right? Because so many players miss the games. It's super exciting. So for the Saints, whether it is Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, or famous Jameis W. Winston, I am not going to be starting either of them. I will be starting, though, the short king himself, Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray losing Hollywood Brown is a huge blow to this offense. Kyler Murray was feeding the rock down the throat of Hollywood Brown, but luckily, DeAndre Hopkins will be returning this week for the team. I know Cliff Kingsbury was like, oh, I don't know how we're going to be able to integrate DeAndre Hopkins in this week, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Cliff Kingsbury, do you think that DeAndre Hopkins is a fucking idiot? Do you think that DeAndre Hopkins can't figure out how to play in an offense that he's been playing in for years? You fucking buffoon. I can't stand Cliff Kingsbury, but with that said, even though Kyler Murray hasn't really lived up to his expectations, he's still been pretty good for fantasy, so I'm definitely going to roll him out this week. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate of games, beginning with the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. In this matchup, it's a no-brainer. You're going to be starting Lamar Jackson. Now, over the last 2 games, Lamar Jackson's production has definitely taken a dip off the edge of the earth, which does kind of knock him out of the MVP race for now, but at the end of the day, it's only week fucking 7, and it's a long season, and he could end up winning MVP. 2 bad games out of Lamar Jackson. Not really bad games, but just not the best games. Don't make me panic one bit. I'm not nervous at all. The Cleveland Browns defense has not looked the best. I think Lamar Jackson could easily be a top 3 quarterback at the end of this week. Jacoby Brissett is going to be a start for me as well in this game because the Baltimore Ravens defense is as soft as baby shit. Jacoby Brissett continues to impress week in and week out, even last week up against the Patriots, with that Patriots defense looking as good as they have. Jacoby Brissett still looked pretty good, so I think he's in for a pretty solid matchup here again up against the Ravens, because that Ravens defense just really is not all that good at all, especially in the second half. That Ravens defense folds easily. Next up, we move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Sam Darnold, Mono Man Sam, has returned off of the IR, but their new coach, because they fired the other guy whose name is fucking escaping me now, Wilkes is the guy. They get rid of Rule. So Wilkes states that PJ Walker today will be the starting quarterback on Sunday. PJ Walker barely threw the ball above the line of scrimmage. He was basically dumping every single pass off, which is why Robbie Anderson got so mad that he started chewing with the coach, and then he gets kicked out of the game and then traded like 7 seconds later to the Arizona Cardinals. Tom Brady is going to be a start in this game. Tom Brady was a humongous, astronomical disappointment last week up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense is nowhere near as good with TJ Watt. They actually suck without TJ Watt, but somehow last week they mustered up an impressive performance. Tom Brady played lackluster, but this is the bounce back game, right? You would think last week's the bounce back against the Steelers, but, you know, they postponed it 1 week up against the Panthers. I think Tom Brady has a pretty solid showing, but it is going to be incredibly telling if Tom Brady shits the bed here, that maybe Tom Brady isn't the guy we thought he was going to be, and maybe this divorce thing is heavily impacting Tom Brady's play. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons at the Cincinnati Bengals, and at this point, I think I need to continue to give more credit to Marcus Mariota. Last week, up against the 49ers, in a matchup where I thought the San Francisco 49ers were going to steamroll the Atlanta Falcons. I thought that the Atlanta Falcons were going to stand no chance in this game. I thought this game was going to be a first-round KO by the 49ers, meaning the 49ers just beat them up early, and then maybe Mariota throws like a touchdown or something at the end of the game, but he was going to struggle because of how strong that defense looked. But there was a lot of injuries to the 49ers defense, and ultimately, this Atlanta Falcons team looks good. Shockingly, when you use Kyle Pitts, when you throw him the ball, the offense is better. Very shocking. Very, very shocking, Atlanta Falcons. But Marcus Mariota is definitely worthy of a start up against the Bengals defense. He has a shit ton of rushing upside. He doesn't throw very many interceptions, and that's just because he doesn't throw the ball a lot on a per-game basis. But here up against the Bengals, in a game that might end up being higher scoring, where the Atlanta Falcons have to throw the ball late into the game, I think Marcus Mariota can get it done. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty is an obvious start every single week. There's really no need to fucking break this one down in depth. Joe Burrow has looked a lot better as of recently. The offensive line of the Cincinnati Bengals early on in the season was just a turnstile. They were letting everyone in to lay out Joe Burrow, but recently Burrow has been able to get a lot more time to throw the football, and the Falcons defense just isn't very good. I know they played strong up against the 49ers last week, but I don't see that being the case this week up against the Bengals. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys, and in this game, I'm going to be firing up both quarterbacks. Dak Prescott will return in this game, his first game action since week number 1. Now, going into last week's game, for some reason, a lot of buffoons had the argument that, oh man, is Cooper Rush going to take Dak's job? And this was legitimately something that they would talk about on TV. Like, are the Cowboys going to move back to Dak Prescott? Are they rushing him back too soon because Cooper Rush is looking great? Come on. Cooper Rush just wasn't making any mistakes. They were not winning games because of Cooper Rush. They're winning games because he wasn't making mistakes. You want to know why the Cowboys are going to beat the shit out of the Lions defense? It's because Dak Prescott is back and he is healthy. Now, I will be somewhat cautious when it comes to playing Dak Prescott. For instance, if you picked up Dak Prescott off the waiver wire and maybe you already had a guy like Joe Burrow on your team, then maybe in that case, I would roll out Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow is much safer. We've seen Joe Burrow play over the last couple of weeks. He has looked incredible. Dak might not be that great in week 1 of his return, but I also don't think that the Cowboys would have put Dak Prescott in this situation if he wasn't 100% healthy. Because again, while Cooper Rush isn't incredible, the Lions defense is putrid. The Lions defense is terrible. So Cooper Rush could have easily moseyed his way on into this game and won. So I think Dak will be fully healthy and I want to start him in this game. Jared Goff is going to be a start as well. I know the Cowboys defense is pretty decent, but this Lions offense really was humming every single game of the season besides in week number 5 up against the Patriots. But again, that Patriots defense has looked incredible. And just so you guys know, the Lions defense is so fucking bad that they still rank number 1, numero uno, in points against in the NFL, and they already had their bye. So even with their bye last week with no points allowed, they basically lost their bye week because they are still number 1 in points against. Next up, we move to the New York Football Giants at the Jacksonville Jaguars. In this one, I will be firing up Trevor Lawrence. Now, the Giants defense has impressed all season long, and the Jacksonville Jaguars offense hasn't been as good as they were to start off the season. That's not necessarily a knock on Trevor Lawrence. I still think he should have a solid performance here, but he's not a guy that I'm breaking my back to force into my lineup. I think he's probably close to like quarterback 15, 16 in my ranking, so he's definitely a solid start this week, but not a guy that I'm going to bang the drum aggressively for or scream to the mountaintops for. Danny Dimes, Danny Stumbles, Danny Fumbles has been significantly better this year than we have seen ever before in his career. Brian Daboll has put this man into tip-top shape. And Daniel Jones, I don't think is that good, but this system has been unreal. The Giants are throwing out wide receivers that you have probably never fucking heard of. Kadarius Toney seems like he wants a trade. He's not going to play this week more than likely. Kenny Golladay is not going to be playing this week more than likely. It's bad. It's bad. I understand why you might want to start Daniel Jones in a deeper league because he has so much rushing upside, and maybe this team just runs all over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Daniel Jones has an all right day, probably like quarterback 20, and to be a start-worthy quarterback in my video, you have to be a top 18 quarterback, so he's definitely on the fringe, but he's not a guy that I want to be touting as a start this week. But I do think he has an all right game. Again, I'm not trying to shit on Daniel Jones because he has really turned things around this year. Next up, we move to the Indianapolis Colts at the Les Titans. But before we move on into breaking down this game, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our sponsor. They've been on my hat this whole entire video. They've also been on the screen this entire video. BetMGM. If you are a new first-time BetMGM user and you sign up with the link in the video description and in the pinned comment, if you bet $10 on any money line game, you will win $200 in free bets if any team in the NHL scores tonight. Any team. You can bet on a team, they don't even have to score. They don't have to score, but as long as one team scores in the NHL tonight, which will happen, it will happen, then you will get $200 in free bets. Free money from sports books don't come very often, so make sure you take advantage of this offer while it stands. Again, all you got to do is bet $10 on any NHL team money line, so you got to bet the money line. You can't bet the +1.5, the puck line. You have to bet the money line on any team. And if any NHL team scores a goal, you'll receive $200 in free bets. It's a no-brainer. It's guaranteed to happen. Build that bankroll for free. Basically, all you have to do is bet $10 and it's guaranteed to give you $200. So make sure that you guys do check that out. Again, you have to be a new user. Moneyline only. Bet down below in the link in the video description or in the pinned comment. So back on into things. I'll start here. We're going to go with Matty. Ice, baby. Dun, 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 dun. Now, Matt Ryan this year, it's been a fucking roller coaster, right? Things were not looking very good for him, but last week up against the Jaguars, this man went toe for toe and unleashed some vintage Matt Ryan. That was the best Matt Ryan I have ever fucking seen, and it was hilarious because of how much he was using Deion Jackson. Meanwhile, he just didn't dump the ball off very much to Jonathan Taylor. I found that to be hilarious. Matt Ryan sliced and diced through the Jacksonville Jaguars defense like his name was O.J. Simpson. So I really do think that Matt Ryan could have a decent showing here up against the Titans. The Titans defense is decent, so I don't think Matt Ryan puts up the performance he put up last week because he was a top 5 quarterback last week, so I don't really see that coming. But I do think maybe if he keeps this up, then going forward, Matt Ryan will actually be a start-worthy quarterback and a guy that in a lot of leagues you can honestly pick up off the waiver wire and start this week. Next up, we move to the Green Bay Packers at the Washington Commanders. In this one, I'm going to be firing up Mr. Aaron Rodgers, Mr. Discount Double Check, but I will warn that the Green Bay Packers are on fraud watch. Aaron Rodgers, it's not looking the best for him. You just lost to the Jumbo Jets at home in Lambeau. Now, if the game was in MetLife, I could do some mental gymnastics into telling you, you know what, it was an away game. Rodgers normally plays much better at home, but it was in fucking Lambeau Field, and they still choked to the Jets. And I know, but the defense didn't play the best. Well, the offense still has to step up. If you're Aaron Rodgers, the back-to-back fucking MVP of the National Football League, you need to step up, pal. You need to step up. Now you play the Commanders. This is a get-right game. Very similar to old man fucking Tom in Tampa Bay. He's got this easy cupcake matchup against Carolina. If Aaron Rodgers gets butt-fucked in this game and does not perform up against the Commanders, then guess what? Guess what? You don't want to be starting Rodgers anymore, and it's going to be tough sledding the next couple of games. They have some tough matchups, but this week up against the Commanders, I believe Aaron Rodgers gets back on the saddle, yeehaw, and has a much better performance. Carson Wentz out for the foreseeable future. My guy, Taylor Heinicke, comes in to be the starting quarterback. And Taylor Heinicke is one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch in the NFL because he does the fuck it, X players out there somewhere and just throws the ball. Most of the time, it's fuck it, Terry McLaurin's out there somewhere, and it's very, very, very funny to watch and fun to watch. It's exciting. He might throw 4 picks, but he might also throw 4 long touchdowns. It's super exciting. Not very reliable for fantasy football, but hey, maybe we can bring McLaurin back to life, resurrect Terry McLaurin for this game. Next up, we got the Jumbo Jets that we just talked about going up against the Broncos country. Let's ride. I honestly think I would rather get in a boxing fight to the death with Mike Tyson over trying to watch another Broncos game. It's so bad. We got the Battle of the Wilsons here. Look, the Broncos have performed when they weren't on primetime. This game is not on primetime, thank God. They're back on primetime, I believe, next week in London. Ain't nobody getting up for that. Ain't no one waking up to watch that shit. I know I actually will be, but I'm not going to enjoy it. The Jets' defense has looked good. This is the last ride for Russell Wilson, Russ. Pal, if you don't perform here, I'm done with you. I'm basically done with you now. He's at the bottom of the barrel of the start-worthy quarterbacks. People have told me they cut him. It doesn't surprise me at all if you want to cut him. I have him as my quarterback in the 14-team league I'm in for Stokastic at work. I am starting Jared Goff over him. So he is basically at the bottom of the barrel. Zach Wilson, the team keeps winning, but Zach Wilson is basically just watching them win. He's barely throwing the ball very effectively. The Jets wide receivers have basically went into fucking hiding. Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, they aren't doing anything with Zach Wilson, the MILF Hunter, under center. This game stinks. I don't want to watch this game, but Zach Wilson is a sit. Russell Wilson is a start, but again, just barely a start. Next up, we got the Houston Texans at the, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr is going to be a start in this spot. Derek Carr has started to perform a lot better as of recently. I know there was some worries about Devontae Adams potentially getting suspended, and maybe that does end up happening, but the court proceedings have not went on yet, and based upon what I read today, that means that there's no way he could be suspended this week. The Texans' defense is awful. Derek Carr, again, while he hasn't been the best this season, he's looked a little bit better as of recently. He's a pretty reliable top 14-ish quarterback. Typically not the guy that takes you over the edge and wins you your week, but he's typically a guy that can drop some solid points so that he doesn't sink your team like the fucking Titanic. So we're going to go with Derek Carr. Davis Money Mills, I like his nickname. I like the fact that his neck is huge, but at the end of the day, he has not been impressive at all this season. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks at the LA Superchargers, and Justin Herbert, the pervert, just came off of the most mid performance I have ever seen. The guy threw the ball, I think, 57 times. Don't quote me on that, but it was 50 plus times. He didn't throw a single touchdown. Bad performance against the Broncos, but again, the Broncos' bright spot is that defense. That defense in Denver is incredibly legit. So now you go from the legit Denver Broncos defense to the Seattle Seahawks defense. That, look, now I try to be nice to some of these defenses. Some of these defenses genuinely are average. Like, there are average defenses in the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks defense is below average. And Justin Herbert just shit the bed in primetime where everyone was watching. So you better believe Justin Herbert is going to hang multiple tugs on the head top of the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seattle Seahawks offense is so good that they're going to be able to fight back into things. Now, if I'm the Seahawks, the Chargers are really not the best at defending the run. They're pretty good against the pass. So if I was the Seahawks, I would just run the ball gently down the stream with Kenneth Walker. And we know Pete Carroll loves to do two things: chew gum aggressively and run the football. So I think we see a decent amount of running out of the Seahawks, but Mr. Geno Smith has looked so good that I think they're still going to have to throw the ball. And of course, the Chargers offense, if they're clicking on all cylinders, which I think they will in this bounce back spot, then we're going to see Geno have to fight from the back, hit it from the back, per se, win. The Chargers have a lead. Next up, we move to the final game before Sunday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs at the San Francisco 49ers. The Super Bowl rematch from a couple of years ago. Patty Mahomes is an obvious start. You close your eyes, you throw Pat Mahomes in your lineup. You don't need to overthink things when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. You are always going to start him. I don't give a shit which defense he's playing against. He is that good. Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G-Spot, Jimmy Pornstar, Jimmy Guap is going to be a start in this game as well. Now, the Chiefs' defense looked pretty stout up against the Buffalo Bills, but I do still think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be able to get it done in this game. Despite the fact that they shit the bed up against the Falcons, Jimmy Guap still had a pretty solid game, so I'm going to roll out Jimmy G this week with confidence. Next up, we move to Sunday Night Football with the Pittsburgh Steelers at my Miami Dolphins. The return of the king, like that Lord of the Rings movie, but this time we got my boy Tua Tagovailoa versus either Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky. Now, let's be honest with you, if you're a fantasy football player and you had both these guys, I think you would prefer that Pickett played over Trubisky because I think Pickett's better. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say what Trubisky did last week wasn't impressive because it genuinely was up against the Bucs to come in and basically play a fucking perfect game, make throws we haven't seen him make all season, and win the game against the Bucs. That was incredibly impressive, but I think a week of game planning by the Dolphins to figure out Pickett or Trubisky. I think this defense typically plays much better when Tua is under center. Now, I know that doesn't make very much sense to the average person like Nick. Why does the defense play better if the quarterback is there? It's just true. I've been watching the Dolphins for my whole life. When Tua's under center, the defense plays significantly better. When Jacoby Brissett was in there last year, the defense sucked dick. When we've seen Bridgewater under center, like as the game gets later, the defense just gets tired of this bullshit. They're like, damn, Bridgewater can't move the ball effectively. And then boom, they end up being ass. So I think the defense plays strong in this game. I'm sitting Pickett and Trubisky, but for fantasy, if I did have to start one of them, I'd rather start Pickett. Hopefully he plays. And then Tua Tagovailoa is a start going up against our former coach, Brian Flores. Get ready for those chants, B-Flow. Get ready, because the Dolphins fans are pretty mad at you. You're the reason why we don't have a first-round pick this year. Fuck you, pal. Next up, we move to the final game here. Monday Night Football. The Chicago Bears at the New England Patriots. What an electrifying matchup, right? So, Thursday Night Football, we get the Saints at the Cardinals with half the Saints team is fucking dead. Not actually, they're hurt, but you get what I'm saying. The Cardinals have been looking like shit. Then we get the Dolphins versus the Steelers. It might be Mitch Trubisky versus Tua. I'm excited for it because I'm a Dolphins fan, but I assume most NFL fans, fantasy football players, they don't give two shits about this game. And then you close the week out with the Bears, who we just saw in prime time recently. They were awful. And then we got the Patriots. The Patriots are going to kick the shit out of the Bears. Bailey Zappi, the Zappinator. I like him. I think he's interesting. But this could just be a run-heavy affair by the Patriots to get out of the game. Just hand the ball to Ramondre Stevenson roughly a million times. Zappi throws the ball around the yard a little bit, but doesn't throw enough touchdowns or yards to be fantasy relevant. Still has a good game, but isn't fantasy relevant. That's kind of how I see things. But Bailey Zappi is one of the guys, just like Daniel Jones, that is incredibly close to being a start. Like, he's knocking on the door. Sorry if I slapped the mic. He's knocking on the fucking door. Knock, knock, knock. And honestly, maybe soon, if Mac Jones doesn't come back, Zappi will be a start-worthy fantasy quarterback. And let's be honest, dude. Let's be honest. Justin Fields looked like he was going to fucking die last week, like, in that primetime game. They were, like, lifting him up. He was, like, fucking the weekend at Bernie's. I don't know about Justin Fields, man. This offense is terrible, so I don't think we necessarily judge him, but Justin Fields hasn't looked the best. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that like button as well. Follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. And make sure you check out that offer from our sponsor. Bet $10 moneyline on any NHL game tonight, and you will win $200 if any team scores a goal tonight. And again, it's first-time BetMGM users, and you have to bet on the money line. And again, make sure you take advantage of this while it lasts, because the offer won't last forever. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!